Hi, I'm TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast, and I ask that you like, share, and comment on this video. Thanks for watching. All I gotta say is, who dat?
Oh, look, everybody. It's Jay.
I think I'm cute. I know I'm sexy. I got the arm that makes the crowd go wow. I throw it short. I throw it deep. Team's defenses ain't getting no sleep. I'm just a sexy J.
Sexy Jay.
Hit him with that pump fake.
Pump fake.
I'm just a sexy J.
Sexy Jay.
Hit him with that pump fake.
Pump fake.
I make them hot. Defenses shiver. They knees get weak. So they ask around, what about his height? What about his stats? But I'm Jake Hayner, and I'm screaming, oh that, I'm just a sexy J.
Sexy Jay.
Hit him with that pump fake.
Pump fake.
I'm just a sexy J.
Sexy Jay.
Hit him with that pump fake.
Pump fake.
Who that nation? Hands off the merchandise. I'm just a sexy J.
Hey, don't let these tears fool you. There's all dog around this mug. I'm good.
Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, and yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you all so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. On this edition, we're going to be talking about wide receiver Hunter Renfrow, and should the Saints make a trade for the very talented wide receiver. We're also going to be reading your questions and your comments. Also going to be talking a little bit about OTAs, has kicked off today down in New Orleans. Some of the storylines coming out of there, who showed up, who didn't show up, and how this could affect the season. But if you are here, I ask that you hit the like button. I ask that you hit the subscribe button. If you're new, thank you all so much. Really do appreciate it. But let's go ahead and get into it. Let's talk a little bit about Hunter Renfrow. I'm pretty sure a lot of you know who he is. You don't have to, follow the Raiders like that to know who Hunter Renfrow is. He's a very talented wide receiver. He's from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I know him quite well, watching him, as a youth, family members and stuff like that, be around the area wearing his jersey. But he went to Clemson. He left Clemson, was drafted in 2019 by the then Oakland Raiders, and has really been a valuable asset offensively for the Raiders, especially when it comes to the slot. Now, he's not the guy that's going to be the biggest in the room. He's not going to be the fastest in the room. He's not even going to be the strongest in the room. But one thing about Hunter Renfrow, every single play, he gives it his all. He was like that when he was at Clemson, and he was that way playing for the Raiders. Now, last year, he dealt with some injuries. The fact is he was dealing with a concussion week 2. He ended up having 2 fumbles in the game, unfortunately. But one of the fumbles, he was knocked out of the game by Isaiah Simmons, and he was put on IR. And he had like an up and down year. Wasn't his best year statistically. So I know some people probably look at his stats and his numbers from last year and be like, no, I don't think so. But he had 36 receptions for 330 yards and 2 touchdowns. But I'm more focused on the 2021 season when he had 103 catches for 1,038 yards. When I look at Hunter Renfrow, he reminds me a lot of that Jordy Nelson, Cooper Kupp type receiver, a guy that you can line up in a slot, is not going to shy away from, physicality. He's not concerned about that. He's just trying to go and get the football. And sometimes, he can put himself in harm's way because he wants it a little bit more. But I like the energy that he comes with. And I like the talent that he is. And I know that when you look at the Saints wide receiver room, the first thing we start thinking about is, well, look at all the guys that they have in there already. But we have learned over the course of time, a wide receiver room or a linebacker room or a tight end room or a quarterback room can start off looking a certain way. But as time goes on, injuries occur, things happen, production dropped by some guys that you think is going to take that extra step don't end up making it, and you find yourself with a huge void. And for the last few years, we've been victims of that huge void as Saints fans and onlookers, right? Because the guys that you thought were going to be extremely productive for the New Orleans Saints, when it came to the wide receiver room, they end up being plagued with injuries or not being available. But with Hunter Renfrow, I think that he would be a great addition to the New Orleans Saints, not just because Derek Carr has a rapport with him. That's beyond my thought pattern. I'm mostly focused on the production that he can bring, and something I feel like the Saints have been missing for quite some time. That slot receiver that can go out there, that can move the chains on third down, a guy that can go out there and make a play when your number one receiver is being bracketed. Hunter Renfrow checks all those boxes, and I just think that when I look at the Saints, a lot of talented guys, but Hunter Renfrow to me is a lot more talented than a lot of these guys that we are trusting to fill a void in the slot. And I just think that if you were to add him to the team, it would be a plus, and he will give you instant production. Now, do I think that he will give you 103 catches and 1,038 yards like he did in 2021? No, I don't. But I don't think you have to look for that. Now, if he's giving you that, that means that somebody got hurt again. So if he can give you that, then that would be great, right? And also the fact that he has done that in the past can be helpful. But I'm not looking for him to be that 1,000-yard receiver. But if he can be 500-600 yards, maybe like six touchdowns or something like that, that would be extremely beneficial to the New Orleans Saints. Look, I'm not fully sold on the wide receiver room of the New Orleans Saints. A lot of the guys we're hoping to stay healthy. A lot of the guys that we're hoping that they can take that extra step from year one to year two. And a couple guys are just kind of, in limbo, hopefully they can make the team. But a guy like Hunter Renfrow, to me, would be a great addition to the New Orleans Saints. The next question I'm pretty sure that you have is, what do you give up for him? Like, what are you willing to sacrifice to acquire a guy of his talent? Well, to me, I think you may be looking at giving up maybe a 4th-round pick, or heck, even, a player for a player here. I don't know, Paulson Adebo, somebody like of that magnitude, in order for you to acquire a guy like Hunter Renfrow. The question is, would you be willing to do that? I mean, you look at Paulson Adebo, yes, he had a down year last year, but he has a really good upside, and he's a smart, talented guy, and I would expect for him to be much better. I think that the ankle injury that he sustained kind of affected him and his production last season, even though, that wasn't really talked about. We mostly focused on, how he looked, but we weren't thinking about, the injury that he sustained. I guess when we look at a player being out there on the field, we think that he's healthy enough to play, but sometimes those guys are out there just giving it their all. So I'm not ready to write off a guy like Paulson Adebo in exchange for a guy like Hunter Renfrow. But I would be willing to give up a 4th-round pick for a guy like Renfrow who can come in, that can, be a really good slot receiver, and has that rapport with Derek Carr if you're into that type of stuff. But even if he didn't have that rapport, I still think that he would be a really good receiver for the New Orleans Saints. So I'm looking at like a 4th-round pick. I know some people are like, man, it's a 4th-round pick, but come on, man, give me a break. Like if a guy can give you instant production, I mean, in exchange for a 4th-round pick, I mean, I guarantee you wouldn't miss it, right? It's only a draft pick is only missed if a guy doesn't end up panning out to be everything the team needs him to be. So should the Saints look into this? Absolutely. Do I feel like the Saints probably would be looking into this? Absolutely. I don't think that the Saints are content with the wide receiver room, even though we're looking at guys and we're trying to convince ourselves that we have enough. But as I said, the New Orleans Saints have been having issues with injuries over the last few years, and I don't want history to repeat itself. And we all know the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different results. If you become complacent, then you may find yourself on the outside looking in. This is shaping up to be a really tough division. Like, I know that we kind of scoff at some of these other teams, but if you look at the strength of schedule of all the teams in the South, there's a chance that a lot of these teams in the South could end up being 9-10 win teams. So you got to make sure that you are doing everything that you can to stay ahead of the curve. Do not be content with just a bunch of guys in the locker room and hoping that a guy like Michael Thomas can stay healthy for you for the duration of the season. You got to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to, number one, make this wide receiver room competitive. Number two, making sure if somebody goes down, there's somebody to pick up that slack. And also, number three, that some of these younger players are developing into those players that you need them to be. But I'm definitely on board with a guy like Hunter Renfrow. Think he's talented, and I think that he will be a great addition to the New Orleans Saints. And I think with that, if you're watching this and you're a Raiders fan, I think that's an indication of what the Raiders actually feel about the 2023 season. You know, the fact that they're bringing in Jimmy Garoppolo, the fact that you still got Devontae Adams out there, as your number one receiver. But, with the young defense that you have, a lot of uncertainty with the team, you have to believe that the Raiders would be possibly looking into understanding that it might be a tough season to maybe acquire one of those top quarterbacks that's coming out in 2024. I don't know if they'll be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. I mean, probably would be if you look at how the AFC West is. I expect for Denver to improve. I expect for Kansas City to still be there. I expect for the Chargers to step up. I expect Justin Herbert to take that step. So this might be one of those seasons where the Raiders are, trying to, figure everything out and maybe, even be there in that top 5 picking where they can acquire the quarterback of the future. But let me go ahead and read some of your comments, and then we'll talk a little bit about Saints OTAs. Feel free to put the comments in the chat, your questions in the chat as well. Once again, if you're just filing in, please hit the like button and also subscribe if you're new to the channel. Let's go to Hoodie Jupe. Thank you very much for the $4.99. Says, who that TJ? Don't forget Justin Fields going to drop 40 piece on our head this year. Thanks again for coming on the round table. Hoodie, thank you very much, man. Well, I don't see that happening. Justin Fields, I expect for him to be better, but I don't expect for him to be in the MVP conversation. And for him to do something like that, that would probably involve him being in the MVP conversation. And I don't see that happening. Do I feel like he will be better? Yes. Do I feel like he will be one of the top quarterbacks in the NFC? No, I do not. I don't believe that at all. Let's see. God-given wide receiver ability, can catch the rock most of the time. Good with your yards after catch. You can depend on him. I don't know about your wide receiver 1, though, or wide receiver number 2. Look, I think that, I don't know if I know you're referring to Michael Thomas and Chris Olave. Look, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Both of these guys are capable of being top receivers, right? We know Michael Thomas is capable. Like, Michael Thomas' talent has never been in question. You never had to question Michael Thomas' ability and drive and determination when he's on the field. It's just the fact that he has been injured over the last couple of seasons, and that's the reason why we're having these conversations. But we all know in Michael Thomas as well, there's very few cornerbacks that can stop him from going over 100 yards and taking over a game. And also with Chris Olave, we've seen him make some big-time catches. One catch in particular was the game versus the Minnesota Vikings, that put the Saints in field goal range to kick that field goal, which Will Lutz missed, which is, I can't knock him for that. It was a 60-plus yard field goal. But the fact that Chris Olave showed that he can actually do that, and also a couple games where he almost went over 200 yards against the Carolina Panthers. Probably, if it was a few catches that he could have made, he would have went over 200. And then also the game versus the Seattle Seahawks. I think that was the game where, he really stepped up. Unfortunately, he got knocked out of the game. So when you look at these two guys, I'm talking Olave and Thomas, that you have a really good 1-2 punch. Once again, it's all about attrition. Can they weather the storm? Can they be available for you? Hunter Renfrow, to me, would add on to an already talented wide receiver room if they're on the field at the same time. If they're not, then we'll have another conversation. But the talent that the New Orleans Saints have at receiver is not in question. It's just a matter of, can these guys stay healthy throughout the entire season? Unfortunately, that has not been the case, especially when it comes to a guy like Mike T. Hey, they brought up Lucas Kroll in the interview. Green had a little smirk. Glad to see it. Look, all I know is, Lucas Kroll, the guy came out of Pitt. He showed a lot of promise last season. Out of all of the tight ends, he was one of the best route runners, but you would think that, he can add on to what was missing, what allowed him to stay on the practice squad as long as he did. And, you would think that he would develop as a blocker and also, add the pass catching dynamic and maybe, be one of those guys where he can step in, make some plays if somebody was to go down. I'm happy for him. This is a testament. If Lucas Kroll pans out, this is a testament to the scouting department of the New Orleans Saints, how they can go out here and find these diamonds in the rough and guys that can contribute. And the Saints have done this over the past few years. We've seen them bring in guys that were undrafted or a team doesn't feel like he fits their offensive defensive scheme, and they find these guys, and these guys become great assets to the team. So if Lucas Kroll can also be a part of that number, I think that would be great. I like him a lot. I think he's extremely talented. I don't think his talent was ever in question. I just think there was a few things that he needed to work on, and maybe this is the season where, he makes it interesting. We'll see. That Willie Snead effect. Yeah, guys like Willie Snead, guys like Lance Moore, those guys were chain movers. They weren't the fastest guys in the world, even though sometimes Lance Moore, he can get behind you. So can Willie Snead. But those guys, they were fundamentally sound. And sometimes you need that, right? You need a guy that's fundamentally sound. I know we love the stars, the guys that can go out there and just light it up. But, you got to have some underneath guys as well when those wide receivers are being doubled, when the running back is getting so much attention. You need those guys that can be able to slip through the cracks to make plays, right? And we've had that as Saints fans, and guys like Lance Moore and Willie Snead, and Robert Meacham, guys like that, right? Guys that can make plays when the number one receivers are being bracketed. So, a guy like Renfrow coming in, he definitely will be able to move the chains. And if Derek Carr and him can get hot, he can take over a game. I've watched games where Derek Carr and Hunter Renfrow were, looking like the best 1-2 punch in football. So I don't know if people understand how talented this guy is, but man, I'm telling you, this dude is like really, really good. And if the Saints can acquire him, man, the wide receiver room will probably be one of the best it's been in a very, very long time, pending injury, of course. But, like I said, on paper, it will be one of the best. He said he's in pain, but he said he loves y'all and keep them likes up. I don't know who we talking about here. Who's in pain? Who is in pain? What exactly happened? Hold on, let me see. Your family prayers to Chosen. He just got in a wreck. Prayers for our brother. Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. And Chosen, man, we praying for you, man. I'm sorry to hear that. That's unfortunate, man. I hope everything works out. You be back with us soon, man. But the most important thing is staying healthy and focusing on your health, man. But we're gonna keep you in your prayers, and we're gonna be here when you get back, brother. I think we good with the wide receivers we got now. I don't know, Jerry. Like, I feel this way. Like, yeah, if you in hindsight, should we be content with the wide receivers we have? Yes, right. But we know that this can quickly turn into the Saints scrounging to see who gonna step up in the game. Like, we've seen this over the years. We've seen this over the last couple of years where we felt okay going into the season. Like last year, we were content because the Saints drafted Olave. They brought in Jarvis Landry. And we didn't think in a million years that history will repeat itself with the injury to Michael Thomas, right? Being out for an extended amount of time. But look where we were. And we had to find ourselves relying on guys like, no disrespect, Traquan Smith and Marquez Callaway to carry the load. And that is a huge load for those guys to carry because they're underneath guys. It's fortunate that a guy like Rashid Shaheed stepped up and he was able to make plays. And also Juwan Johnson took that extra step as a tight end. But imagine if some of those guys like Shaheed didn't pan out, right? Or, Juwan Johnson didn't take a step as a tight end, then you really would be in trouble. So to me, I'm for it. I'm for bringing in guys, loading it up and allowing training camp to kind of weed itself out. If you don't have what it takes, then there are 31 other teams that probably could use your services. But I'd rather have the right guys and also the right receiver room. If somebody was to go down, that somebody can step up. Now, there's a pecking order. There are levels to this, right? You have elite, talented guys, and you have guys that are borderline elite. And then you have the guys that are underneath. But at the same time, if their number is called, they are capable of making plays, right? I think the biggest issue has been for the Saints is offensively. They've always had one-star wide receiver that demanded the ball probably 70, 80% of the time. Those were the Horns, those were the Costins of the world, those were the Thomases. And then you have guys who are just skilled guys that are probably good at one thing. It's rather they got the speed to take the top off the defense. It's rather, they got a big body where they can catch the ball in the middle of the field, or, they were good blocking on outside. And I just think that has been the issue with the New Orleans Saints when it came down to it, especially in playoff appearances when everything kind of is nip and tuck, when teams are focusing on the things that can neutralize your team. When the Saints got into the playoffs, teams knew that they needed to neutralize Michael Thomas. And if those guys like Traquan or the guys like Willie Snead step up and they make plays, then it's just not our day. But we're not going to allow the best wide receiver to beat us. And I think that has been the issue with the New Orleans Saints. But if you get a bunch of guys in there that are capable of making plays, right? And if somebody was to go down, the guy is still capable of getting 100 yards, then somebody tell me, what can a defense do? You can't double everybody. So if somebody getting hot that is not the number one receiver, then they have no choice but to roll some coverage his way. And if you're rolling coverage his way, that means that the number one receiver is probably going to be seeing more one-on-ones. And if you're the number one receiver, 9 times out of 10, you have the capability of beating that. So I think that you have to be able to add guys that can do more things. Now, I'm not saying you don't want guys to be able to know how to block or take the top off the defense. You still need that for explosive plays. But we have to understand, when you're talking about football, guys are going to get hurt. And you can't just have one guy and a bunch of guys that are just good at one particular thing. it's just not going to work in your favor. You are praying and hoping and just hoping, you're hoping that the number one receiver will be able to be there the entire season. But over the last few years, we've realized that hasn't been the case. That hasn't been the case. So you have to be able to adapt to that. You got to be able to adapt to it. You can't keep on doing the same things and expect things to change. You got to be able to change it up. Seems like to me we're turning into the New Orleans Raiders. It seems that way, right? It seems like the New Orleans Saints are trying to go after Raiders players, but I think it has a lot to do with them trying to make Derek Carr comfortable, getting guys that he's familiar with to help him, right? To be able to make this adjustment. I mean, he spent 9 years with Oakland/Las Vegas with the Raiders organization. Now he comes to another team, so you want to make sure that he's comfortable. Now, it can't just be about guys, oh, man, I just want him to be on my team. I don't want the Saints to treat this like an Aaron Rodgers situation, like them bringing in Randall Cobb and, Allen Lazard and all that kind of stuff. Even though Allen Lazard signed before Aaron Rodgers, I'm pretty sure those two guys had a conversation about them, hooking up with the Jets, even though, it probably was off the record. I don't want a situation like that because, you might back yourself into a corner. You want to accommodate your star free agent, of course, to make things comfortable, but you don't want to just turn this thing, into a team that he once was with. I think that you had some talented guys within the Raiders organization. Don't get me wrong. I think Jonathan Abram is talented. I think that Brian Edwards is talented. I think Derek Carr is talented. But, things can be different, on teams, right? Just because you found success in one place don't mean that you're going to find success the other place. And I don't think that you should give guys opportunity after opportunity after opportunity because he's the road dog of the star free agent that you want. If it don't pan out, it just don't pan out. But, the guy like Hunter Renfrow coming in is going to help your team get better. The addition of a guy like Derek Carr makes your offense better. So as long as they're bringing in guys that make the team better, I have no problem with that, right? If you just start bringing in guys who, I don't know, just always had dinner at Derek Carr's house every Saturday before they have a home game or something like that, like, man, miss me with that. But if a guy can come in and contribute, then I don't have a problem with it. Renfrow coming in, I think he's a contributor. Brian Edwards coming in, I believe he's a contributor. He's a really good possession receiver. So, as long as those guys can contribute, I have no problem with that. No, even if they, have been teammates in years past. While we're at it, how about six trading our entire team for five the Raiders' entire team? Look, I don't know exactly. I don't look. Like I said, if a guy can come in and contribute, I have no problem with it. I have no problem with a guy coming in as long as they can contribute. But I'm not a fan of a guy just coming in because he's just your boy road buddy. Like Randall Cobb going to the Jets. Like, God bless Randall Cobb, but his best days are behind him, and he would not be on the Jets team if it wasn't for Aaron Rodgers. Plain and simple. It's better to have too much than not enough in any position. That's the truth. Because once again, those things have a way of working themselves out. Consider this: every play, they're always subbing, and when it happens, defenses are always off balance. So I agree, nothing like another starter as a rotation. Yeah, look, we all know, when it comes to the New Orleans Saints, I don't know how it is or how it was last year, but we know that the Saints have different personnel packages. They have more personnel packages than most teams. Most teams have maybe 6 or 7 personnel packages. The Saints can get up there to like 14, 15. I remember a couple of years ago, Emmanuel Sanders talking about that. He's like, he'd never been on a team where they had so many different personnel packages. Now, I don't know if they condensed that down since Sean Payton left, or is it the same way? I would hope that it's the same way since the guy that was with Sean Payton all those years is still here. So if you have all those different personnel changes, then, the more that you can make things confusing for the defense, the better. Because the Raiders were not good. Yeah, I mean, just because the Raiders weren't good don't mean that the players weren't good. Sometimes like it's just not the right fit, coaches and players, schemes and players, right? But, you look at a guy like Renfrow. I mean, we see that the guy is talented. You see a guy like Carr, we see the guy is talented. Jonathan Abram, you see this guy's talented. Brian Edwards, he's talented. So it's not like they just look, I don't want people to think, just because they played on a losing team makes them losers, right? I mean, doesn't mean that those guys can't play. Sometimes, you just go to a bad spot that's not beneficial to you. And, I don't feel like that should affect you as a player, because sometimes guys go to different places. They find a scheme that fits them and they become really, really good, and I don't think it's a coincidence that happens. I just think that the team finds a way to utilize them and they live up to their potential. So hopefully those guys that come in, the Saints can find a scheme for them and they can live up to their potential and, make some really good money in the process. Let's see. Scroll down a little bit. Thank y'all for being here once again. Please hit the like button if you're just here. We got 79 people watching this as of right now. Says, don't forget to hit the like button. I appreciate that. Thank you. Because of our injuries, I guess we're having a conversation like in the chat. Says, son of God, thank you very much for the 199. Says, if the Saints don't make the playoffs, is DA gone? I think I would have to think so. I just think that based on the strength of schedule, based on everything that you have brought in, based on the fact that the Saints have given Dennis Allen the leeway, the green light to build the team in his way and his image, I think you have to win. What can you sell the New Orleans Saints fan base if you don't make the playoffs? Like, how can the New Orleans Saints convince fans that Dennis Allen is the answer going forward? And I think about this, man, because the reality is, if it don't pan out, then the Saints can possibly take a step back. Because whether you like Dennis Allen or not, you have to admit the guy knows defense, and he's one of the best defensive minds in football. So for him to lose his job, all of that good defensive mind, the defensive mind that he has, that goes with him. Because I don't want anybody to think, the Saints going to bring him in the office and be like, okay, we don't want you to be a head coach no more, but you can be the defensive coordinator. It just don't work like that. If it does not pan out with him being a head coach, he's going to be gone. And I'm pretty sure, like, as soon as that was to happen, somebody's going to call him up because they're going to want him to coach their defense. And that defense of that team is going to be really good. One thing you can't say about DA, he knows what he's doing when it comes to defense. So in a way, I want this thing to pan out, because even though it's leaving a lot to be desired as of right now, as we speak, the defense, you know for a fact that you can always count on to make plays. And then you will have to find yourself finding a defensive coordinator, hopefully that it pans out and you'll be able to be put in the right position. But for real, like, if something was to happen with Dennis Allen, I mean, all that good defensive play, I think you might see a step back from it. So in a way, I hope that it can work out, because I mean, at best, we know that the Saints going to have a really good defense because of him. Says, with Carr, an above-average quarterback, the weapons will be utilized more effectively since Dalton held the offense down. I don't want to say Dalton held the offense down. I just think that the offense was stagnant, and it had a lot to do with the fact of the guys that were available. Once again, it goes back to what I originally said. When you have one guy who demands the ball, who can do a multifaceted of things, you're counting on that guy to be available every single game. What happens when that guy goes down? You're going to see a drop-off. You can't expect Marquez Callaway to be Michael Thomas. You can't expect Traquan Smith to be Michael Thomas or Chris Olave, right? I mean, those guys are underneath guys. So to me, you got to be able to find guys that can do a multifaceted of things once again, right? So when you just have a guy who is just good at taking the top off the defense, but you expect for him to run some routes like Michael Thomas was running, right? Running dig routes and, you know what I'm saying, and all these other different routes that you expect for him to run. But the only thing that you've been asking him to do is basically run 9 routes, which is street routes or deep post routes. Like, come on, man. Like, you're going to see a little bit of a drop off. And then on top of that, guys who just you're asked to just go out there, okay, just run an out route, right? Now this guy has 2 cornerbacks on him being double covered. He was having issues with probably the 3rd best cornerback on the team. Now you are supposed to go one-on-one with the number 1 corner on the team. What do you think is going to happen? So I don't want to just completely just blame Andy Dalton and for the defensive woes. I mean, it was a combination of things. It was a combination of the wide receivers not being good enough to be able to win their matchups consistently. I'm not saying that they trash. I'm just saying that they weren't good enough to win their matchups consistently. Those are for the number 1 receivers of the world. And I just think that it's just wishful thinking to want a guy like Traquan Smith to go over 100 yards consistently, or want a guy like Callaway to go over 100 yards consistently, want a guy like Deontay Hardy to go over 100 yards consistently. I just think that that's wishful thinking. You want those guys to succeed. You want those guys to succeed. And most of us have psychologically programmed ourselves to believe that these guys can do this, right? Because we see them at practice and we look at these highlight tapes and we hear, we hear that they had really good practices. So all of a sudden, like in our minds, we're thinking these guys are taking a step forward. Now, sometimes when you hear those reports, those guys are really taking a step forward, and it shows in their game, and it shows in their play, and it shows in their production. But for the most part, if I hear some positive reports, and once again, no disrespect to this dude, but if I hear positive reports about Traquan Smith having a great day at practice, I take that with a grain of salt, because I've watched Traquan Smith for the last 5 years. I mean, go out there and basically just be out there, right? And Callaway, same thing, you know what I'm saying, when he was here. So I just think it's wishful thinking when you want a guy, to go out there and be like Michael Thomas and get mad when a guy isn't Michael Thomas or he doesn't play like Michael Thomas. Back to what I was saying about Andy Dalton, I can't completely 100% blame him. It was a combination of the coaching, the play calling, the players that were available at the time, and their inability to be able to do some of the things that made the Saints offense efficient. So it was a combination of it. It wasn't just him alone. I can't just do that to him. I know we want to, look at Andy Dalton and say he ain't it. I mean, but I can't completely 100% blame him for all of the offensive issues. I don't even give him the majority of the blame. I think that it is even kill. I think it's a equal share of the pie when it comes to what happened in 2022 when it comes to the offense. Y'all think Thomas is going to do good this year? We miss him on the field. Look, once again, Sugar, it has nothing to do with Michael Thomas as a player. Like, if you're asking me, will Michael Thomas do good this season? Absolutely. Because anytime Michael Thomas is on the field and he's relatively healthy, we know what he can be as a receiver. It has never been an issue about Michael Thomas's production on the field. It has been the injuries that he has sustained over the last 2.5 seasons that have prohibited him from going out here and building on that Offensive Player of the Year campaign that he had in 2019. When he's on the field, we see that he's the best wide receiver out there. So it's a matter of him actually being available. So if you're asking me if Michael Thomas being healthy, would he be able to contribute and be the Michael Thomas that he has been in years past? Absolutely. Because he was actually on the cusp of actually doing it. 2 touchdowns in week 1, then he added another one in week 2 versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So to me, yeah, as long as he stays healthy, I think that he'll be fine. I think that the offense will be fine. But it's just a matter of him being available. You got to be available. Perfect example, Christian McCaffrey, Carolina was going to ruin this guy's career. Yeah, look, I look at, Christian McCaffrey. I think that was a breath of fresh air, him moving from Carolina to San Fran. The way that San Fran is structured, Kyle Shanahan does a really good job at scheming guys open, giving playmakers space in order for them to make plays, and also, adding to the running back room. In Carolina, Christian McCaffrey was the is-all and a be-all, right? I don't think Carolina was really looking for other backs to be able to alleviate some of the pressure off of him, especially as he started to, get injured and get nicked up consistently. And I think with the San Francisco 49ers, we know that they're going to run a football. They're going to run a football with running backs, or they're going to find different ways of using guys like Deebo Samuels or even George Kittle in the backfield or something. They're going to find a way to make sure that they run a football and be effective doing so. So with that, I think that it will save Christian McCaffrey some years on his career. I think he was extremely happy to leave Carolina. I think that he loved Carolina, but I think that he understood if he wanted to continue his career and have a few more years, add a few more years onto his career, he would have to leave, because the way that they were actually structured in Carolina was not beneficial to him at all. Yeah, DA must be gone if he doesn't make the playoffs with this talented roster and really easy schedule. Now, yeah, schedule makers really did the Saints a favor if you're looking at what these teams have done in 2022. They've done them a favor. So it's up to the New Orleans Saints to be able to build on what the schedule makers did for them. They got to make sure that they get the job done. And if he doesn't, there's not many excuses the organization or, some of the people that the organization relies on to keep the people at bay, with articles and fluff news, it's only so much that you can do, and there's only so many ways you can protect bad play, and that's something that bothers me. If I can get on my little tangent for a second, it just really bothers me, like when people don't call out stuff that is, to be quite honestly, bad. I don't think that it's a knock on the organization and you hate the organization. I just think that sometimes, some people have a tough time of calling it what it is. I don't know why. But, shouts out to a very respectable reporter that, I had opportunity to talk to. And, I mean, he left something on my mind. Man, I was just chopping it up with him, and I was just asking for his advice. And one thing he told me, he said, man, if you're expecting some of these organizations to really give you everything or how they feel about it, he said, it's just not going to happen. He said, that's why you have to, rely on the real journalists, or you have to be that real journalist to be able to speak out and be the man or the woman of the people. So, man, I shouts out to that reporter, really put something on my mind. And, I don't understand why people just don't call it for what it is, but this is his last chance to me to be able to really be looked at as a guy that could possibly do something with this team. Like, if you can't do something this year, then a lot of Saints fans are not going to be interested in what the Saints are going to be doing going forward when he's here. Like, I think that the New Orleans Saints organization would be naive for them to believe that if the Saints don't make the playoffs in 2023, they can just bring Dennis Allen back for another year and nobody would feel a certain way about it. I think you'll probably see ticket sales be affected. I feel like you'll see interest in the team be affected. I think people will always have love for the team, and yeah, people are going to continue to watch because you're a fan, but people want to see results, right? And people want to feel like what they are invested in is worth the investment. So you have to do your part, right? Nobody, if somebody books an interview with you about an idea that they have and they bring a patent up and they try to demonstrate it, and all of a sudden like sparks and everything start and it start catching on fire, like, and you're like, okay, I want you to invest in this. Are you going to seriously look at it and be like, man, you know what? Let me get 2,000 of those. No, you're going to be like, maybe come back when it works again. We'll give you another shot or something. But you got to be able to live up to your end. And the Saints got to do that. Because if they don't, then I feel like you're going to have some disgruntled fans, and fans going to, lose interest in coming to the games. because that's money. That's money that they could put in their gas tank. That's money that they can put in their refrigerator. That's money they can wear. You know what I'm saying? Like shoes or clothes or something like that. Like people make sacrifices. Now you got some people that's well off. They come to the game and they don't lose any sleep. But you have some people that come to the game and they're season ticket holders, and these people have real life issues and they make sacrifices in order for them to do that. So I think that they need to take that into consideration. Who that TJ and the nation? Farouk, thank you for being here. Says, I wish we could see personnel packages and the shuffling of players in and out, depending on situations like we did when Sean Payton was here. Yeah, look, there's some things offensively they definitely have to improve on. I think we all can agree to that. Definitely, number one to me would be the uses of Alvin Kamara and how you're going to use him. Getting back to the things that made him Alvin Kamara, not Earl Campbell or Jerome Bettis. That's number one to me. Number two is the sophistication of the offense. I just think that it was stagnant. Now, some people believe that the addition of Derek Carr being able to do certain things at the line of scrimmage would be beneficial to the New Orleans Saints. I think that's part of it. I think that you also have to account for the stability of the offensive line. The offensive line play has not been up to snuff. It has not been what the New Orleans Saints needed to be over the last couple of years. Name offensive linemen, you probably would say that they needed to improve. I don't care. Even my favorite player on the team, Ryan Ramczyk. It starts with those things, right? I know we look at the offense and what they're doing and we want it to improve, but we have to look at everything. And to just think that, we just bring some wide receivers in here and it's going to solve all the problems, it's not. You can have as much talent as you want on a team, but if you don't have the coordinators to get that talent out of the players or put the talent in position to make plays, then you're going to find yourself being disgruntled and frustrated just like you were in 2022. It's a combination of things. It's not just players that we're talking about here, Who That Nation. It's not just about coaching staff. It's a combination. The coaching staff have to make sure that they're putting the players in the best position to succeed, and the players have to take advantage of the opportunities when those opportunities present themselves. Like, we can talk about how Pete Carmichael called some of the games where he had Alvin Kamara running up the middle when the offensive line clearly wasn't pushing anybody on the defensive line back, right? And those defensive players was meeting Alvin Kamara as soon as he get the football, right? We can talk, and we also can talk about how Alvin Kamara had opportunities when lanes were open and, you fumbling the football, or wide receivers wide open, missing catches like Jarvis Landry and Chris Olave. You got to call it for what it is. Like, we can't pick and choose and just, look at one particular thing and say, yeah, that's it, and focus on that, but also neglect the fact that over here, this happened and it also affected it. So it's a combination to me. It's not just about Pete Carmichael, and it's not just about, to me, Dennis Allen. It's a combination of everything. Everybody has to step their game up. I'm pretty sure if you wanted to and you really did your due diligence, you can find games where each position is virtually responsible for the lack of consistency when it comes to the Saints offense last season. Only 19 points a game did this offense score. So, it's a combination of things. When your offense is that stagnant, it's not just about the coaching. It's a combination of things. With all the wide receivers in the room, why people still looking for a trade for one? I don't know. Because once again, it's not just about the talent inside of the room. You have to think about the things that you have endured over the last couple of years. Like, in a beautiful world, I'm pretty sure people were like Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Brian Edwards, and let's just roll with this thing, right? Or whatever wide receiver you want to put in, no matter, plug and play. And we'd be like, okay, let's roll with it. But we did the same thing, right? 2022. Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave, let's run with it, right? 2021, man, we got Michael Thomas, man. Traquan Smith, if you can just catch about 30 passes, we'll be straight. Didn't happen. So you can't just sit up here and just say, okay, man, we added James Washington. Because here's the thing. James Washington had a magical season a couple of years ago, but I don't know if you noticed, the guy's bounced around the league, and he has dealt with an injury that was very, very significant. So it's almost to me like Hakeem Nicks, like for the Giants. Like if you watch Hakeem Nicks, the wide receiver for the Giants, that boy was a beast. I mean, the dude had vice grip for hands. Like, I want to say he had like a 2XL gloves, like something crazy like that. Like, had real big mitts, and he would catch everything. Then all of a sudden, like, he started having knee injuries and ankle injuries, and next thing you know, he's bouncing around the league. There will be a time where the Saints will sign Hakeem Nicks and be like, man, that is great right here, man. The Saints about to be some ballers. But as you can see, like when you start dealing with those injuries, you're not the player that you once was. James Washington was a really good player, had a really good solid season for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and was coming on as a player. But he did deal with an injury. And you know what I'm saying? How that injury is going to affect him? Is he going to be the player that he was going to emerge to be? Or is he just a jag right now due to the injury, kind of making him take a step back? Brian Edwards. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? He was a good possession receiver. And yes, you look at the highlight tape, he catching no 50-50 balls. And there are times when he looking like Dez Bryant or Michael Thomas in the red zone. But how consistent can you do that? What happens when you're getting more targets? Are you taking advantage of that? Right? Or it's just the fact that Hunter Renfrow is having a monster season, so we got to account for him. Henry Ruggs at the time, like, man, we got to take account for his speed. Man, Brian Edwards did winning this one-on-one against a slot corner that's probably like 2-3 inches shorter than he is. So how beneficial is it? Okay, if we constantly put you out there, are you going to take advantage of the opportunities? Like, we can't just sit up here and just look at highlight tapes or just look at what guys did a couple of years ago and just think that we got this thing set in stone. I am not content. I don't care what the Saints say. On paper, it looks good. On paper, if you look at some of these guys and look at their track record, looks really good. But I'm asking myself, why are these guys on a scrap heap? Why is it so easy for you to attain these guys? Why did the team that they come from give up on them so quickly? You got to ask yourself those questions. Now, it could be, oh, man, the team made a dumb decision, or it could be the fact that the team seen the writing on the wall and said, you know what? Maybe we just need to go ahead and cut our losses and maybe bring somebody else in because he probably plays good in the next couple of years, but around that time, that knee will probably started bothering him, and he's not going to be the player that he once was. So when it's time for a contract, we're not going to pay him anyway. Some teams think like that. So bringing in more guys that can contribute, and let's not mention the biggest topic or the biggest thing that you want going into 2023, competition. Competition breeds greatness. Competition is what makes these teams, these average teams good, these good teams great. If you just got a guy that just comes out there on the street and be like, oh, man, you know what? I'm going to burn him. I know I'm going to burn him. I know I'm better than him. Like, think about this. Michael Thomas comes to the Saints training camp. Who in that wide receiver room can compete with him for that number one job? Seriously, like as good as Chris Olave is, I don't even think he's at that level right now. But if you got some guys that can run some routes, some guys that's catching these passes, some of these guys that's out here taking the top off the defense, you got some of these younger guys taking a step forward and they looking good. You know what that's going to do? That's going to make Michael Thomas step his game up. A guy that's already ultra competitive, it's going to make him step his game up. If you're watching guys on a bubble like Traquan Smith, like you want to be on the Saints team. I know y'all may not be a fan of the dude, but you want to be on the team. You want to continue to be a New Orleans Saint. You got to step up and do what you have to do. You have to understand that competition is what's going to help the New Orleans Saints get out of this muddy water. It's going to help them get over this hump and this bumpy road that we have witnessed and watched over the last 2.5, 3 years. And having guys that just, content with oh, I'm out here. I'm gonna be a part of the rotation. Ain't it? If you have competition and you win, right? It feels so much better because you earned it. So if you bring in a bunch of guys, they're competing, and you decide that, okay, man, I'm gonna roll with these 5 or these 6. They earned it. It's not nothing given to them. Nobody on this team, I don't care who it is. I don't care if you're the starting offensive lineman. I don't care if you're starting linebacker. I don't care which is. Like, nobody should come into camp feeling like their job can't be taken. I don't care if you are Cam Jordan. I don't care if you're DeMario Davis. You got to earn your keep. And if you feel that comfortable, then I'm questioning the coaching staff. Earn your keep is the motto in 2023. It's the motto, man. You got to earn your keep. When the season ends, do you keep AK or trade him? Depends. Depends on what direction you see the running back room going in. If Jamal Williams goes out there and have a monster season, and also Kendrick Miller, if he comes out there and he balls out, I mean, yeah, that's something that can be, put on the table. But I'm not looking to try to trade Alvin Kamara. But anybody that just think, oh, man, is out of the realm of possibility, I would say that you're sadly mistaken. I mean, if the Saints can get production from Williams and Miller, and be able to capitalize on some on trading Alvin Kamara, I think they would do it. Because Alvin Kamara at least going to bring you a second-round pick, second or third round, based on his production and how talented he is. And he's still in his 20s, right? And in the right situation, we know what type of player he can be. Saints got to get better quarterback, running back, and OC. Just to run game, the average yards per carry has been bad for a few years. Yeah, I mean, it's been bad because, the offensive line has struggled, and it is not the fact that the guys on the line aren't good. It's the fact that they ain't been available. Like, if Ruiz comes back, then Eric McCoy is out. If Eric McCoy comes back, Ruiz is out, and then Pete is out. And it's like you plugging and playing. Then you getting guys from the street, and then you're expecting undrafted rookies, unproven guys to come in there and be the great and be like the Great Wall of Dallas or something like that with Larry Allen back in the day. Like, all this stuff is just wishful thinking. There are guys on offensive lines that are starters for a reason. You're a starter because you're better than the guy that's probably behind you, unless it's like completely political. But you're better than the guy who is backing you up. So if you see the guy that serves as a backup, more than likely he's probably going to get burnt or beat more times than not. That's just the way that it goes. But the offensive line has to improve. Okay, so if the offensive line improves, then you'll see the running game improve. And that's the issue, And also the way that what you're asking these running backs to do. What are you asking the running backs to do? Are you asking them to do something that doesn't fit their skill set? Or they could do it, but it's not in the best interest of the running back, and he won't be as productive. Like, theoretically, can Alvin Kamara run up the middle? Yes, he can. But does he need to be running up the middle consistently? I think we all can agree, absolutely not. He's good with the screens. He's good with the wheel routes. He's good with the angle routes, right? He's good with the stretch plays. Like those are his strengths. I mean, looking for Alvin Kamara, which they say that he's 210 pounds, which I don't believe. I think that he's probably remained like 200, 205. You ask me. Like, you ever seen him up close and in real time? Like, he does not look like he's 210 pounds. Like, there's no way. I'm 213 pounds. So you look at him, man, he does not look that way. He looks like he's probably like 200, 205. Let's see. What's that pendant you're wearing, TJ? Thank you for the $2. This is a picture of me and Paxton. It was given to me by my wife on my first Father's Day. So just something that's always near and dear to me. I always wear. Like, they got it for me. So yeah, it just she took a picture when me and him were asleep, and she ended up like just turning into a chain. So it's just something that's near and dear to me. I don't ever take it off. So let's see. Good afternoon, TJ. What offense changes do you think we will see for Carmichael? I've heard we might see more spread plays. Look, to me, I don't even think you have to get all sophisticated with it. Look, I get it, right? There's nothing more great than watching an offense, an efficient offense at work. And watching the New Orleans Saints over the last 15, 20 years, it has been the epitome of offensive efficiency, right? It is never like one thing you can say, like no matter how bad the defense was, no matter how bad the game was, you always knew that you were going to see some excitement from the Saints offense. Had a lot to do with who was the quarterback at the time, had a lot to do with who the coach was at the time. But those days are over. But I don't think the issue is the New Orleans Saints need to be running plays like, like Andy Reid called for Patrick Mahomes. I just think that it's about understanding who you have on a team, what their strengths are, and coming up with offensive concepts that fit that, right? And also not shying away from going with the hot hand. Like, for example, in the game versus the Bengals, we see Rashid Shaheed go on the jet sweep, right? First play, he took it to the house, right? But we didn't see him anymore. Why? Because to me, it was all about, man, let's just get this youngster a play in, right? Let's see what he does. To me, I feel like if you have a play for a guy, right? I think if it started working and you see that is effective and he's grinding and he's fighting and he's, saying he's being a threat, then you should have a play sheet that's already designed for him. I just feel like one thing that I loved about Sean Payton is he was meticulous. He dotted the I's and crossed the T's. He had plays for even if he wasn't going to call them, right? If Willie Snead was getting hot and he was getting open, he had plays for him, right? And you'll see, the offense kind of, getting him the ball a little bit more. If, somebody else gets hot, it's the same way. And I think that's what you need. You need to understand the strengths of these guys and call their number consistently. If Rashid Shaheed takes a jet sweep to the house, I ain't saying run the offense around him, but don't just take him out the game completely. By taking him out the game, it just really shows us as fans that you ain't really believe that this dude was going to be able to do what he did the first play, right? I mean, even if that's not the case, maybe, it's not a part of the game plan. Well, make it that way, right? I mean, it's just that simple. If you're trying to win a game, if you're looking at how the defense is covering Thomas, covering Olave, and this guy is winning a one-on-one matchup, you can see this. So to me, if you start doing things like that, I think you'll be fine. It's about over preparing. And sometimes that might, cause you to, have to exhaust yourself, but it's the NFL. You know what I'm saying? If you ain't completely exhausted by the end of the season, your team probably stunk. So, that's my biggest issue. I don't think that the Saints have to reinvent the wheel. I just think that they need to cater to the strengths of the players that they have and understand it. Come on, man. Alvin Kamara did not fall off a turnip truck. He didn't fall off a cliff. The plays that they were calling for him just wasn't working, and it didn't fit his skill set. And also, another thing, how many screen passes did we see? The Saints used to live and die by the screen. We used to kind of roll our eyes man, another screenplay? That's what we used to do. I mean, very little screen plays, very little offensive plays that made the Saints who they are were called last season. Now, a lot of that has to do probably with injuries, but when the players that we are used to seeing them make a certain type of play, those plays weren't even called. I mean, it kind of questions what the heck are you doing as a play caller? I don't know. If the Saints were losing, but Alvin Kamara was still putting up that production, and the Saints were running some of the plays that made him special, then I don't think we would just get that upset. We'd be like, man, at least my boy balled out. I mean, he looks like a mere shell of himself. And I think it has very little to do with him, and everything to do with how they're using him. And also, the confidence level. Like if you know that they want to call a halfback dive straight up the gap, and for a fact that your offensive lineman gonna get blew back, and get pushed back on you, like how confident are you gonna be like running that play? I mean, that's just human nature, I mean, that's just how it works. Winston had every chance to be our franchise quarterback. He hurt every season out here. Yeah, I'm not going to go into that conversation. Look, Derek Carr is the quarterback, and that's it. Whatever happens with Winston, hopefully, everything he bounce back and be able to have the career that he wants. Pete Carmichael just kept running AK up the middle while running the ball. Yeah, I didn't understand that at all. I didn't understand it at all. I didn't understand why. Same for Zach Bond, a pass rusher in college, but we never really got to see him blitz yet. Mostly he been on special teams and off ball. I think this might be the year where you actually see Zach Bond do some of that. I think that now if the Saints are smart, which I know they are defensively, I think that you saw how effective Caden Ellis was in that role. And if you can actually, have somebody else that have that capability, then I think that you can find some level of production with that. And then, we know that Zach Bond can rush the passer. I mean, that's what he did really well at the University of Wisconsin. He wasn't that linebacker that was around that thing chasing, running back and covering guys like that. He was a guy that had put his hand on the ground and rushed the passer. So if the Saints can actually use him in that and he can be effective in it, then I think that would be another defensive weapon that the Saints can use, Last year, in a nutshell, Latavius Murray, our best running back. He had his best running back performance, that I can think of last season. But, I mean, he was only here for, one game. So to say that he was the best, I don't think that that's true. I think he had the best running back performance. But, I just think that what the Saints were doing with Alvin Kamara wasn't beneficial to him or the offense. TJ, the Saints have never put Zach Bond on the edge, not half the plays in his entire career as a Saint, which, I don't understand. I don't understand. You saw this guy and how he was used in college, and you're trying to make him be a stand-up linebacker. Like, some guys can make that. Some guys can make that adjustment and make that change, and then some guys, you just gotta see. Yeah, man, you got to see what you got. You got to see what you have, and if it ain't working out, like, why not? And you also seen, once again, by putting Caden Ellis in that position, it was effective. So maybe you need to do the same thing with Zach Bond, and maybe it will pan out. Letting Latavius go was a mistake. We had old washed Ingram replace him, and that didn't work. Well, it's not about Latavius Murray, the Saints letting him go, right? It was the fact that Latavius Murray had the opportunity to have more of a starting role in Denver, and that's where he went, right? Like he wasn't, they activated him off the practice squad, which made it well within his rights that he can go somewhere else. A team can take him, from them. And, his agent did a really good job, because that's what agents are supposed to do. They're supposed to put their clients in the best position. They ain't looking at, oh, man, well, TJ said that Latavius Murray was an effective player for the Saints and they need to keep him, so we're going to keep him. No, man, this man earned the right to go out there and get opportunity to be a starter, and I'm happy for him. And I like Latavius Murray. I think he's one of the most underrated running backs in the league. I think everywhere he's been effective. And everywhere that he goes, man, his production matters. So, I'm happy for him. And there's a reason why he's still on the team right now. That shows you the type of respect that Sean Payton has for him. I remember Sean Payton was like in a interview, and he called Latavius Murray over, singing his praises. We got stuck with Mark Ingram, a.k.a. Mr. Morning Show Zoom call guy. Well, look, I'm not going to not just gonna ish on Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram was a good New Orleans Saint player. I mean, Father Time is undefeated. A man is what, 32 years old. You know, there's a lot of wear and tear on your body between playing running back at Alabama, being one of the featured backs in New Orleans all those years. You know, I mean, he's not a spring chicken anymore. So for us to expect for him just to be, you know, that spring lively 20-year-old running back he was when the Saints drafted him in 2011 was just wishful thinking. You know, I always got respect for Mark Ingram. You know, I appreciate Mark Ingram and his contributions, and you know, I'm pretty sure maybe a phone call or two, a ring, but I think in reality, you know, I think that it's probably going to be, you know, it for Mark. But the best thing about it is, I mean, he has so many other things he can be doing. I'm pretty sure he's going to transition to television because he's extremely talented and entertaining. So definitely he's going to end up landing on the network. I mean, I've seen him on the NFL network. He's doing stuff with Kay Adams. So, you know, I think he's had a really good career. He's definitely, you know, a Saints legend, if you ask me. No, I mean, I like Mark Ingram. I just think that we wanted to catch lightning in the bottle like we did in 2017, 2018 with the duo of AK and Mark, you know, boom and zoom. But I mean, Father Time is undefeated, man. And you try to hope that your body holds up, but it just didn't work out for him. Latavius Murray is on the Buffalo Bills now, TJ. Smart teams do smart things. Well, that's, you know, I didn't realize that, you know, but if he is, then that's great. You know, that's good for him. He deserves it. I didn't think that, you know, they were gonna move on from him. So, but that's pretty, you know, I didn't realize that. Now, when did that happen? I didn't even realize he went to the Buffalo Bills. I thought he was still with the Denver Broncos, but you know, yeah, I think that's a smart decision. I think he's gonna be a really good running back there. You know, let's see if Derek is looking good at OTAs, that's a good sign for our offense. Well, look, I take it with a grain of salt. Ain't nobody touching nobody. Ain't nobody trying to go after nobody. Ain't nobody putting no pressure on nobody. You know, so, I mean, I'd rather wait for like training camp and see, you know what I'm saying, how the offense is working. You know, it's one thing people just throwing passes with shorts and, you know, a jersey on. But let's just see what happens when a pass come on and, you know, the defense is trying to get into his head, and then we'll see. You know, I don't think you can really evaluate OTAs. But speaking of which, before we get up out of here, let's talk about OTAs. Let's talk about what transpired on today. A couple things happened. Some new numbers were given out. Alontae Taylor now wears number 1. Rashid Shaheed has taken on the role of number 22 from his number 89 jersey. So, I mean, and then you also have some guys that were there. Of course, we mentioned Derek Carr, Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave was out there. I've seen Traquan Smith. You have Foster Morrow, not Monroe. Morrow was out there, and that's a great thing. I mean, he was only a few months removed from being diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. So him being out there is a really good look. He had Juwan Johnson out there, Lucas Krull, but some guys were not there. I mean, some of the star players, Marshawn Lattimore wasn't there. Alvin Kamara was not there. Michael Thomas was not there. Ryan Ramczyk was not there. Demario Davis wasn't there either. So, I mean, it wasn't like, you know, it was mandatory, you know, like it was voluntary. So I expect for those guys to be available. I expect for those guys to be ready to play. And, you know, I mean, when training camp comes, I expect for all those guys to be available. So that's a good thing. And, you know, like I said, I'm not really putting too much stock in OTAs because, I mean, I don't really think you can see too much. You know, I'd rather see what he can do when the pads come on. But it was good to see a lot of those guys being out there and willing to be a part of voluntary OTAs. Welcome to the State of Latavius Murray podcast, your host, TJ Jonas. Word is Mike T will be ready for training camp. Well, I mean, he should be. He should be ready. Dang, Michael Thomas still rehabbing. He was out an entire season for a toe. What the heck? Yeah, I mean, look, I don't like, to be honest with you. Even if he was healthy and it was voluntary, I still don't feel like he'll show up. So let's see. You got a new franchise quarterback and you don't come to training, don't come to camp. What the heck? Look, I don't want it to be one of those situations where we trying to find something wrong. Like, those guys are getting work in. Like, just because they ain't out there on Airline Highway together don't mean that those guys aren't working together. Michael Thomas is one of those individuals that's kind of like private about some of the things that he do, the regimens that he do. Yeah, you'll see a video or two of him like running or something like that. But for the most part, a lot of stuff that he does is behind the scenes. And these guys have gotten together off the record, I'm sure, so I wouldn't really put too much stock into that. Debo, the guy who holds the record for most rushing yards all time as the New Orleans Saints, Mark Ingram. Look, guys have a shelf life, and it doesn't take away from the contributions that they put forward. Mike T just had hardware removed from his foot, so that's not great. Hopefully he gets right, but the team seems like they're preparing for life without him. Well, you have to. Every last few seasons you have been living life without Michael Thomas. So, you got to be prepared. Like, you want him to be out there, but you can't just focus on like, oh man, he's going to be there. Like, you got to dot your I's and cross your T's, man. You got to do it. TJ, when are you going to put out your greatest hits? I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna ever put that out, but but I mean, of course, like all of their different parodies and stuff like that are available for everybody. On the State of Saints podcast YouTube channel. Says, what up, TJ? What's going on, Anthony? Said Deuce was better than Mark to me. Shout out to him though. Well, I mean, look, don't mean that he was terrible. I mean, and saying that Deuce McAllister was better than him don't mean that's not a knock, because a lot of people feel like Deuce McAllister was the greatest Saint running back of all time. So there's nothing about that, is a knock. I mean, Mark Ingram was not trash. Mark Ingram to me, one of the best Saints running backs of all time. Mark Ingram to me was better than Reggie Bush. There's very few running backs that have come through the New Orleans Saints organization that were better than Mark Ingram, whether you like them or not. Actually, having the hardware removed is not a setback or a negative. Folks just want to panic about everything. Well, look, I'm not one of those people that's just going to, cry over spilled milk. Like, you got to be prepared. Like, if he, is not 100%, like, you got to make sure that you can accommodate, for that lack of production, So if you're upset or mad about that, I mean, look, it's all just the off season. Like, sitting up here trying to find storylines or trying to find reasons to get mad. Like, why live life like that? Like, I can't sit up here and panic about something that I don't know is going to happen or not. Right? I just think that if you're doing that, then you're kind of just setting yourself up for failure and not enjoying the process. Sometimes you just got to live in the now. And thinking about what's going to happen or what will happen is only going to just lead to more frustration and panic. And, if those things do occur, then let's talk about them. But if they have not occurred and have not shown themselves, then we basically just create an illusion. I mean, creating illustrations in our mind to get ourselves to panic. I'd rather not do that. I asked the same question 3 times. Thank you for letting me know you won't answer unless it's something you can talk a little trash about. I don't know exactly. We talking about me or talking about somebody else? Or I don't know exactly what we talking about. I don't know exactly what we saying here. Let's see. The most important storyline I'm ready for is Trevor Penning. He's a big X factor this year, so I'm really hoping he'll get healthy and play well at left tackle for us. Haven't heard much on him this year yet. Well, I think he should be ready, man. I mean, he had a little setback. this past season. I mean, he was developing to being that left tackle that we need him to be. And I expect for him to be there. Maybe Sean Payton is the reason Mike is so injury prone. He was 90% of our offense the year AK was hurt, so I don't know. Then we overused AK for the last years, and he stayed hurt. Bad load management. Well, I mean, it's football, and you're going to use the best players, right? So guys are going to get hurt. Let's see. LOL, they always said Mike will be back for training camp. LOL, y'all chill. Now, Tidra, yes, TJU. Dude, I don't owe you nothing. Let's just make this. Let me just say that. I appreciate you for being here, but I don't have to answer your questions. I don't have to answer your questions. And we have over 100 people here right now. So I'm strolling down. So I'm sorry that, I don't want to make you the focal point of the show, or you want to be the focal point of the show. But dude, if I don't see it, I don't see it. So I'm sorry, man. Like that, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do, man? What do you want me to do? Like, I'm not like, bro. Some man, some of y'all need to chill, man. For real. I appreciate everybody for being here, but for some apparent reason, like people just feel like I'm morally obligated to answer your question. Sometimes I don't see it, but it's not almost a day that goes by, or at least a week that goes by. Somebody, man, I don't know what I did to you, TJ. You did nothing to me. I didn't see it. So if I don't answer your question, just put it in the chat and maybe I'll roll across it. But if you actually just see like as how fast this chat is actually going, you'll understand it. But man, I don't get it, man. Like seriously. Like I'm should I just completely like just stop doing shows live and maybe just give my opinion and keep it moving? Maybe we need to do that. Because apparently people get in their feelings about, me not answering their question. I mean, I don't know. On that note, thank y'all so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast. I really do appreciate it. Shouts out to everybody in the chat. Also, shouts out to everybody listening, no matter where you are, wherever you may be. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, youtube.com, search The State of the Saints podcast, facebook.com, search The State of the Saints podcast. We got some previous episodes available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM, also a part of Megaphone. Check out the Gumbo Pie Sports podcast that's available. Also, check out the website, gumbopiesports.com, and you can follow yours truly on Twitter at TJAYJones8. If I didn't answer your question, I apologize. I'm sorry. Don't take it, don't take it to heart. I appreciate everybody's contributions, but I don't understand. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. I got love for every single person, but I'm not going to just sit up here and just dedicate and focus on one particular thing. If I'm seeing comments on the line, then I'll read them. If I'm not seeing yours, I'm not seeing it. Just that simple. You can, nothing personal. It is what it is. But thank y'all so much. Till next time, all I got to say is, who dat?
Hey, don't let these tears fool you. There's all dog around this mug. I'm good.